Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Coffee and Headlines. We're here every morning, 10:30 in the morning, Puerto Vallarta time, to enjoy and share the latest headlines from places near and far, along with some nice freshly brewed coffee. It's always nice to be joined by our regular friends and new friends that we make along the way every morning. If this is new to you, my name is Paco, and we would love to find out that you are new to these broadcasts. So please write the word new on your comments so that we can give you a proper welcome. As always, we're always happy to see regular friends join us. Catherine, Rita, it's always great to see you. And it's always great to see everybody that takes some time every morning and let us know that you're alive, that you're doing well, that you're staying connected, that you're learning something new through these times in which we seem to have a lot of time in our hands now that we're staying home. I must tell you, I did something wonderful yesterday. I took a look at Netflix's new coronavirus special, the documentary. It's a half an hour piece. It was produced by Vox, and it was absolutely wonderful. I totally recommend that you take the time and watch it. It will help you understand so much about this whole thing about social distancing and how the morbidity of a virus has to do with how much time we should stay locked in and so forth and so on. A lot of the things that we're living or that we're going through will make a lot of sense if you watch it. I guarantee that. The other thing that I wanted to watch yesterday, but it didn't work out for me, was the Sondheim 90th birthday celebration. Apparently they were having some technical problems, but I'm happy to learn that there is a broadcast to be found online, and we'll talk about that later on today. And we will also take a look at one of the specific moments in the show that was truly wonderful. Elaine, great to see you. Colleen, yes, bumpy start, but I found the whole broadcast, Rita, and I will be sharing it later on today. Kathleen, Tim, Gail, always great to see you. Fernando from Mexico City. ¿Cómo estás, Fernando? Buenos días. It's great to see you. Michal, always great to see you. Always great to see you, Margaret. And we have another new person, Shauna Benton from Brandon, Manitoba, Canada. It's so nice to see you. Welcome aboard. Get comfortable, grab some coffee, and sit down because we're going to have a fun and bumpy ride today. Not that kind of bumpy, but a bumpy ride. I'm still savoring yesterday's broadcast because Paul, he's a dear friend, and I'm so glad to see that his fundraising campaign is going successfully. I checked out some of his results early this morning, and donations keep coming in. This is wonderful. You guys are awesome in that regard. So now that we're slightly warmed up here, let's get started with some headlines. I have a little bit of everything for you today. For starters, we learned today from El Heraldo de Mexico that 6 out of 10 people in the state of Jalisco are staying at home. And this is a good thing. This guarantees, or this has resulted in Jalisco having a lower curve than other parts of Mexico. So all the insistence that our governor has been putting forth, all the campaigns that have been shared with the public to stay at home are having good results. On the other hand, through Proceso, this political magazine from Mexico City, we learned that the states of Zacatecas and Hidalgo are the entities where people are least following the guidelines to stay at home. Now, we don't care much about these other states, but it's nice to see that our state is doing well. And selfishly, I looked at this photograph, which is featured in the article, and it's not a photograph from either one of those states. This photograph is taken at El Zócalo in Mexico City. If you've ever been, you know that directly behind this man is the Palacio Nacional, which is where our president does his work and where the daily press conferences that we've been watching take place. Up here to the right is the Basilica. And up here on this roof deck, where that little finger is pointing, that's the Hotel Majestic. And the reason I'm pointing it out is because when you go to Mexico City next, and whenever that may be, Hotel Majestic has this amazing little balcony on top of it, and it's the best place to take in the majestic view, pun intended, of the Zócalo and that wonderful collection of colonial buildings that you can find in this part of Mexico City. We also learned today from Contralinea that locally, despite the fact that Hugo López-Gatell, our spokesperson for the coronavirus pandemic, has been asking folks to not use force to implement the stay-at-home rule, we learned that 2 to 3 people are being detained on a daily basis in Puerto Vallarta because they are not following the stay-at-home guidelines. This is both comforting and thought-provoking. It's good to see that local authorities are doing what they have to do to make sure that people stay where they're supposed to stay. And the flip side of that, of course, is that it is unfortunate that they have to rely on a certain amount of force. What the article says here, and I want to clarify this because we don't want people to think that all of a sudden our local authorities are taking people away by force. The article very clearly specifies that the authorities go and find people and they tell them, hey, you should really be home. And then if they come back to the same place and they find that people are not following the guidelines, it's one of those third time's a charm kind of thing in which they are finally realizing that some people just don't get it, and that's when they decide to take them away. Our totally vain and superficial and mindless and useless headline of the day comes from Hugo López-Gatell's wife, who has now revealed that despite the fact that she's married to him, she and him are separated. So if you've been pining over our nice-looking COVID czar, whether you're a boy or a girl, please know that, you may have a chance. Hugo López-Gatell has been very good at dodging all kinds of questions that have anything to do with his personal life. So only God knows what he does at night. There's a wonderful new interview released by Vox to possibly complement their documentary on coronavirus. This is on Bill Gates' vision for life beyond the coronavirus. As always, it's a very well-researched interview that I'm sure you're going to enjoy very much. Now, let me take a pause because we're getting done with the serious stuff and see who else is joining us today. We have Julie Bunker. We've said hello, hello Marge, and hello Ray Vallarta. Did anybody catch the Sondheim last night? I wanted to make sure that I don't repeat myself, but this was really a nice show that everybody was looking forward to. Stephen Sondheim, the world-renowned musical theater composer, was to celebrate his 90th birthday through this artist-studded celebration, and the beginning was a little glitchy, but and I haven't had a chance to watch it, but one of the things that I saw that was showcased this morning is this amazing performance by Christine Baranski, Meryl Streep, and Audra McDonald doing The Ladies Who Lunch. The Ladies Who Lunch is one of those iconic songs that Stephen Sondheim wrote. It is a song that he wrote for his 1970 musical company, and in this musical, the story of the musical revolves around a guy named Robert, who is this single guy who is unable to commit to any kind of relationship, and the musical revolves around him, his 3 girlfriends, she has 3 at the same time, or they alternate, and 5 married couples that are his best friends. In one of these married couples happens to be a lady called Joanne, who in the show is married to her 3rd husband, Larry. So the Ladies Who Lunch song, for those of you that don't know it, because you're gonna go watch this, you have to, it's absolutely brilliant. It is a song that mockingly judges the rich and wealthy women of our world who waste their middle-aged lives doing nothing meaningful. And and we've all seen her. I mean, we've all seen her here. Some of them hang out at the beach, but let's not go there. The important thing about this song is that it's a classic song composed by Stephen Sondheim. And ironically, you know, in the musical, it was sung by a single person. Elaine Stritch was the first lady that claimed the song as her own, and it became her signature song for many years. So to see three iconic ladies of stage and screen, all three of them are triple threats, which means that they can dance, they can sing, and they can act. And the three of them take turns drinking booze from their homes while somebody's accompanying them, and they pay tribute to this wonderful song. It's an absolute must-watch. So I'm going to leave you the link for this and the link for the entire thing so that you can enjoy it on your own time. What else do we have? Oh, well, here's the whole Sondheim. Now, again, I'll give you the link for this. Something else, I have two more things to share with you before we get into it. One more thing to share with you. Again, I praise Vox just about every time we come on board, but they write about so many wonderful things. You know, they can write about coronavirus, and then they have this really quirky and wonderful article about why does everybody but me have a sunburst mirror. We've seen them on shopping catalogs everywhere. So this is a really funny essay on where these came from, what is the religious and cultural origin of them, and why people choose to have them at home. It's nice to see some feedback from some of you that watched the Sondheim. It's nice to see that Paul is checking in, Christy is checking in from San Francisco, Diane, and of course Elaine tells us that the Sondheim was very well made. We will watch it absolutely this afternoon. So many online shows. It's nice to see that Debbie Holiday was doing live. She's doing a lot of things. Pretty soon we may have to concern ourselves with having to keep track on all these performances and recommend the others. It's a nice thing that we had an opportunity to meet with Mark Hartman just a couple of days ago and get a sense as to what makes a live broadcast on social media more successful than others. And I'm sure this is something that we're going to be appreciating more and more as we move forward. Speaking of appreciating, I do have a special feature today, and I posted that today we would be discussing a very specific piece of music that we're all familiar with, and we are going to do that because it is a piece of music written for the piano by Ludwig van Beethoven, and this is what we're going to talk about today. Let's start by identifying this piece. And I'm sure you've heard it before because we've all butchered it, either when we were kids or we have all heard our nieces and nephews butcher it, and as we grow older, our granddaughters and grandchildren, you know. So it starts with 5 notes. So I'm sure that by having heard those notes, you know exactly the piece that we're talking about. If you don't, you will find out in a second. But for the time being, while I have this digital piano here, please take this into your mind. We have an E, and this is a D sharp, and we have 5 notes. And one of them is an E, and one of them is a D sharp. And this D sharp, which I'm looking at the key on the keyboard right over here that I'm playing. This D sharp also goes by the name of E flat. It depends on the music that you're doing. Sometimes we call it a D sharp, sometimes we call it an E flat. But as you see, it's the same key on the piano and it sounds the same. So with that knowledge in mind, let us dive into this little Beethoven adventure that I have prepared for you today. Of course, we are talking about Ludwig, who was born in 1770 and died in 1827. And the piece of music that we're referring to, of course, is For Elise. It's actually a bagatelle. It was bagatelle number 25 in A minor. And it was composed 210 years ago today. Beethoven was 40 at the time. So even though it is a relatively easy piece to play on the piano, he had already reached the point in his life in which he was composing very sophisticated works. What is a bagatelle? A bagatelle is usually a short piece for piano. They are mellow in character. They're not very they don't have a lot of contrast. They're not either very intense or really peaceful. They're just mellow pieces, short, usually. There are dozens of them. Beethoven composed a bunch, and other composers have done as such. But what's fascinating about For Elise is that it was not discovered until Beethoven had died. It was discovered 40 years after he died. And the complete name of the original manuscript, which has been lost since, was For Elise on April 27 in memory of L.V. Beethoven. So everything seems to indicate that he dedicated this to a particular Elise. And we'll get into where in the world this Elise is or was or went in a minute. There's a couple of things that I want to point out. Number one, again, those 5 notes that we start with, which is that E and that D sharp, which are repeated a number of times. E, D sharp, E, which you have heard before. Now, here's a curious thing about this. As I told you, a D sharp can also be considered an E flat, and that's what an E flat looks like an E, the red E, with a little B-looking sign. That's an E flat. Well, in Germany, an E flat can also be represented as an ES. A small S is used in German music to refer to an E flat. So what ends up happening is that the phrase has 5 notes. Elise has 5 letters. So it is quite possible, and in fact, a lot of people have speculated, and scholars talk about this, that these 5 notes represent the name of Elise. E, L, I, and then the S, which is that E flat, and then that E. So it's interesting to consider that when Beethoven sat down to compose this music, he was actually thinking to himself, you know, what are the values of the different letters and what did they represent and so forth and so on. We don't think much about this because we think it's this silly little piece that kids play and that we probably have never even heard well performed. Well, there's a couple of things I want to leave you with when it comes to For Elise before we put it away. Number one, it is a simple piece. It's on everybody's repertoire. We all have to learn it when we learn how to play the piano. We all have to endure it when we hear our little relatives play it. It is written as a rondo. It has 5 sections. It's an A, B, A, C, A. The A section being the doody-doody-doo part, which we all know. And that's the only part that we seem to think that is the piece. But then these other sections come forth. We don't ever hear them because, of course, when our nieces and nephews are playing the piece, they only learn the first part, and then they realize, well, yeah, I'm going to go play with my neighbors or whatever. Anyhow, what I found a great version of it being performed on the concert stage. And this version comes to us from Valentina Lisitsa, who performed it with the Seoul Philharmonic a few years ago. This was performed back in 2008. So let me set the stage. A famous piano player goes and performs with an orchestra. For those of you who don't go to concerts, what goes on is the following. The soloist, in this case, Valentina Lisitsa, she performed Grieg's Piano Concerto. She takes her bow, but people keep clapping, and she comes back, and then she leaves the stage, and people keep clapping, and that signals to the soloist that the audience expects her or him to play an encore. And an encore is an opportunity for a generally tired soloist to come back and say, okay, I just played for you for 45 minutes and you want more? Fine, I'll play some more. And what they'll do is either play something that they're studying on their repertoire or play a piece that continues to dazzle and showcase their own technical artistry, or they just play whatever is on their minds. A lot of artists take the opportunity to play music from their country in which they're playing. In this case, Valentina Lisitsa had already played 3 encores, and she's called in to play a 4th encore because the audience kept applauding and they wouldn't stop. So what does she play? She plays For Elise. And it's interesting in this particular version that as she starts the piece, everybody recognizes it and everybody starts laughing. Like, we don't know if they're laughing because, okay, she must be tired, so this is the only thing left in her repertoire. We don't know if they're laughing because they're thinking, oh my God, we paid all this money to come hear you play and you play that? But anyhow, it's an interesting listen. I encourage you to go and enjoy this version of For Elise because even though, again, it's a fairly simple piece to play, it is also a beautiful, beautiful piece of work in the hands of a good piano player. It won't take more than 6 minutes of your day, and I am sure you will enjoy it a lot. Now, where do you find this? In our show notes. As soon as we're done with this broadcast, I'm going to take all these things that we talked about today, I'm going to append them to the description of today's show, and this will allow you to find the links for all these things, which I hope you will have a chance to explore on your own time, to enjoy today, and if you feel to bring them up tomorrow, we can have a nice conversation and have a really wonderful time. We have a comment from Elaine that says that at 1 o'clock our time, there's a pub quiz from the National Theater hosted by Helen Mirror and Ian McKellen. This should be fun. I totally agree. I will look for this on YouTube and I will add the link for that to the links that I'm going to share with you in a minute. In the meantime, oh, Julie Bunker asks, am I going to play at least a little bit of the piece? My mouth is watering for it. I'm afraid not, Julie. I am not going to play For Elise, although I could one day, maybe one day I'll play For Elise, but not today. Anyhow, this is what we have for today. I hope that you will enjoy some of these links that I'm sharing. It helps me know that you're enjoying it. Last night as I was going to bed, I was thinking about, again, this month that we've enjoyed together and what we're going to do here moving forward. And it's clear to me that a good bunch of us can use some serious news, but we can also use some food for our soul and food for our minds, things to keep ourselves learning and to keep ourselves inspired. And moving forward, I will endeavor to continue to try to find as much of this content for us to share and for us to enjoy. In the meantime, it is Monday. I am out of groceries. I have to go find some coffee because I'm on my last cup, literally. But I enjoy spending time with you as always. I am grateful as always for you sharing the broadcasts with your friends. Every time that you share any one of these broadcasts with your friends and loved ones, it helps us reach a bigger audience and hopefully have more great ideas coming from you to build content for subsequent get-togethers. In the meantime, I am on my way. I have to go shopping, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you tomorrow morning as always. Have a great one.